Matt Wallner continues to impress for the Twins in a loss at Kansas City. Luis Arraez has also struggled, and what that's meant for the Twins in the second half. It's all coming up on today's episode of Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Minnesota Twins podcast. Today is Tuesday, September 20th, and I'm your gracious host, Nash Walker. Thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. Again, this is Nash Walker, Season 3, hosting this podcast on a daily basis. Season 4, writing about the Twins at twinsdaily.com. And I am used to coming on after games that don't really matter for the Twins, because I did it for months last year, 5 days a week. So we roll on. We don't stop. We always got things to talk about. We always got storylines. Matt Wallner today and where he fits in the rest of the season and into 2023. Dylan Bundy, Simeon Woods-Richardson has another great start for the Saints. Luis Arraez is continuing to struggle. And then that Jax Theobar combo and what that means for the bullpen next year too. So what you'll notice on the show is we're going to start to turn this into what does this mean for next year? What does this mean for next year? We got 14 games left, and it's fun still to see some storylines that play out, because I do think these last couple of weeks matter for a lot of guys. You know, Matt Wallner is one of them, and I've been really impressed by Matt Wallner. There is a lot of swing and miss, as advertised, a lot of swing and miss. I think he's trying to combat that by swinging early in counts, and we'll see if that hurts him as a major leaguer to try to make more contact. Swinging at pitches he can't drive, that could be an issue at the major league level, and that's kind of an unintended consequence of trying to cut your strikeout rate, is you're swinging earlier in counts and you end up making weaker contact, or contact you didn't want to make on a pitch you wouldn't normally swing at unless you were trying to avoid getting into a 2-strike count. But he's impressed me in right field. His arm is a howitzer. He hits the ball hard, and then he hustled tonight and was ultimately called out. He was out, but it was a close play on a play that would have scored a run had he been safe. He busted it down the line on a grounder to second. And I think Matt Wallner should get a look on opening day next year. I think he should be on the opening day roster next year. And we'll see what happens these next couple of weeks. I think he should be hitting higher in the lineup. I mean, at this point, just bat him up in the lineup. Like, get him as many at-bats as possible. Get the most looks you can at him. I understand he's a little bit lower. You want to take the pressure off him, but what's the pressure? You know, what's the pressure? You're not in a pennant race anymore. There's no pressure in these games. This is, let's get him situated. Let's get him as many at-bats. Let's get him at-bats with runners in scoring position, hit him behind Correa and Miranda. I think they should do that. You know, they did that with Trevor Larnach last year in his rookie season, and I think they should do that with Matt Wallner. Bat him toward the top of the lineup. Why not? And I think if he shows out for these next couple of weeks, we've seen a lot from him already. If he shows out, I absolutely think he should start in right field next year. The Twins are going to have some questions with their left-handed bats. And, you know, ideally and hypothetically, they have some beasts from the left side. I mean, Trevor Larnach is big and strong, left-handed. Matt Wallner is big, strong, and left-handed. Alex Kirilloff is big, strong, and left-handed. Jorge Polanco is a switch hitter, very good from the left side. Max Kepler is a left-handed hitter. They have a lot of them, and in theory, if Wallner, Larnach, and Kirilloff are healthy with their ceilings, you know, you would hope that would be like 3-5-7 in the lineup next year, and then you fill in with Buxton and Miranda and Jeffers, and hopefully a Correa if they re-sign him. That's ideally what the lineup looks like next year. You have all those injury questions, though, with Larnach, with Kirilloff. You have questions about Wallner and that swing and miss and his approach. But, I mean, his upside is just so much higher to me than Max Kepler. I think it makes all the sense in the world for Matt Wallner to start on opening day next year. I do think people don't understand or don't want to accept that Max Kepler is, by the numbers, outs above average, the best defensive right fielder in baseball this year, and it's not really close. He's that good in right field defensively. But I've made the case over and over, I'll continue to make the case, that it's not worth his bat anymore from a spot where you need to be getting offense. And I think Wallner has a much higher ceiling in right field. And defensively, you're going to give a little away. We saw him try to make a diving play in Cleveland. Kepler probably would have made that play, a healthy Kepler. But his arm is great. That's what you need out of your right fielder. I don't think you'd be giving away enough that's worth the bat transfer, if that makes sense. Because I just think his power upside is so much higher than Max Kepler. And I'm talking about a guy who hit 36 home runs in a season in Kepler, and it was a juice ball season. And since then, the power numbers are not there. I think Wallner has legit 30 to 40 home run power. And I think they should have him in right field every single day down the stretch this year. And I think they should have him in right field next year. They're going to have to make some decisions this offseason. Max Kepler is under contract. I think it's $8.5 million for 2023. I don't think they should pay Max Kepler $8.5 million in 2023. I think they should be looking to try to find a way to get his money off the books. They have young guys who deserve spots. They deserve looks. They have higher upside. They have a even minor league track record that looks good enough to play, looks good enough to start for a team that is hoping to compete even in 2023. I think Matt Wallner has been impressive. I think he is clearly a building block for this outfield in the future. Maybe I'm getting carried away and he goes on an 0 for 25 with 15 strikeouts and I'm feeling differently. I just have seen enough early on, like the little hints of tools that he has. He needs to grow. He'll continue to grow. But the way he hits the ball, the way the ball comes off his bat, the arm in right field, and just his size and his presence in the batter's box, I like all of those things. I really do for Matt Wallner. Dylan Bundy made another start tonight, and I'm going to use this opportunity to say again why the Twins should not be giving starts to guys like Dylan Bundy and Chris Archer in I would say the rest of 2022 and in 2023. Who should be getting those starts instead? Let's get to that after this word from LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Head over there, add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Again, go to LinkedIn Jobs. That's linkedinjobs.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Dylan Bundy made another start for the Twins tonight. It did not go well. MJ Melendez hit a big home run off him at Kauffman. This is simple to me for 2023. I said it on Sunday night. There's no reason to have rotation fillers in 2023. There's no reason for it anymore. And I'm just really tired of the Archers, the Bundys, the Shoemakers, the Haps. I'm tired of it. And I think Twins fans are tired of it. And I get it down the stretch. You don't want to push some of these young arms too hard. You don't want to start the clocks. That's what it is for a lot of these guys, I think, at times. But for next year, no rotation fillers. There's no reason for it next year. You have young starters who you've developed for years who are in their mid-20s who should be in the rotation and should be given a chance next year. And it's not even like you're filling a rotation with 5 young starters. Again, ideally, if everybody's healthy, Sonny Gray's on the injured list now, you have Gray, Malley, Ober, Ryan, and then Winder, or Varland is your 6th option, or Maeda, and then Varland and Winder in the minors. It's not even like you're filling 3 rotation spots with young starters like they would have been this year if they had not signed Bundy or Archer. They didn't have the arms to fill those spots because of injury, ineffectiveness, or both. But there's no reason for that in 2023. There is no reason for that. And I will argue that he should not be making starts anymore for the Twins. It's a 1-year deal. It's a 1-year deal. And Simeon Woods-Richardson has been awesome for the Saints, and he's 21 years old. And you can make a really good story out of this in September by calling him up after he had a 5+ ERA at AA last year and reward him for such a great season. He's at AAA doing this. He's not at high A as a 20. He's at AAA dominating, pitching extremely well. There's no reason for Woods-Richardson to not join this rotation at this point. I think last year the Twins did a decent job when they recognized and accepted. I think it took a long time, but when they accepted the season was over. And I think fans, I felt it was over much earlier than they felt it was over. Once they decided, they did try to take advantage of that by giving Ober starts. They called up Ryan in September. Griffin Jacks made a bunch of starts. And without Griffin Jacks making those starts, he's not who Griffin Jacks was this year, which is a really solid reliever for the Twins because they recognized things in him when he started and they let him get beat up, but they learned. And now he has a really valuable role out of their bullpen. So I think they did a decent job of that last year. Like I said, they batted Trevor Larnach third, fourth, fifth in the lineup when he was healthy. They tried to make lemonade out of sour lemons, or sour lemonade out of, it's still a losing season. It's still, I don't know if they'll have a losing season. They're trending toward that, but it's still a non-playoff season. You can try to make the best out of it though. You can make the best out of a non-playoff season, and they did the best they could last year. I'm not crowning them for anything last year, but the last 2 months, it did pump out Griffin Jacks. It did pump out Bailey Ober. It did pump out Joe Ryan in some ways. So I'm grateful for that, at least in 2021. Luis Arraez is hurt. He's struggling. He's so important to this offense. And again, it's hard to watch him struggle because we know how good he is and we know how much he means to this group offensively in the clubhouse. That's not going to change for Luis Arraez. And his role on this team is as important as anybody's role on this team. I think in the second half of this year, he's been dinged. He's been dinged up. He hasn't been the same Luis Arraez he was in the first half. And it's noticeable. It's noticeable on a nightly basis. It's noticeable that he's not the same guy. He's 0 for 5 tonight, strikes out wildly, his hands flying off the bat. He just doesn't look right. I think they should consider maybe shutting him down. What's the benefit? I mean, I know he wants to win the batting title, and I understand that. And like, if he wants to win it, let him play. But if not, what's the benefit of Luis Arraez playing? He could really hurt himself. He could really get hurt. And now you're looking at another guy going into the offseason who's might have to undergo another procedure, or God forbid, right? That's the risk you run. And I'm just to the point, this thing is over. And it's been over for a couple of days now, but this thing is over. And whatever you think helps you for 2023, do it. And it's an example of an in-game example here. When the Twins are down 15-0 and they put in Jermaine Palacios, it's not because they want to watch Jermaine Palacios pitch. It's because they don't want to use another reliever they could use the next day. That's kind of the analogy here. You're down 15-0. Don't put out Yohan Duran in this game of a season, right? Like, save your bullets. Save your bullets. And it might not mean anything. It probably won't to do that. But I just think, like, at this point, Louis clearly hurting. Sonny's done for the year. Malley's done for the year. Buxton's likely done for the year. Who's it benefiting? I mean, again, if he wants to go out and try to win the batting title, I understand that, but he's not playing well because he's dinged, and he hasn't been playing well for much of the second half, and now Aaron Judge is going to probably win the Triple Crown. So we'll see. I don't know. We could see that happen. I mentioned Griffin Jackson, how good he's been this year. Has had some lumps. He's a rookie reliever. His first year as a reliever, I should say. But the Jacks-Thielbar combo has been really solid. Right and left-handed, 6th, 7th inning. That combo has been really good for months now. And we saw that tonight a little bit. Jacks gave up a run on him. I think Jacks gave up that run on a little blooper, and then Salvi doubled off Fulmer. Fulmer wasn't good tonight. But the Jacks-Thielbar combo is one that you can count on next year, I think, in this bullpen. And Griffin Jacks is now a staple of the bullpen, which if you would have told me that a year ago, like, Jacks is going to be pumping 96, 97 out of the bullpen with a hard slider and, a pretty good changeup at 90, 91, I would say no way. Like, let me see it. I want to see what that looks like, because he was 91, 92 as a starter with his fastball, and the slider was always a good pitch. If you listen back to my shows, or you remember the shows from last year after Griffin Jack starts, he struck out 10 White Sox in one of his starts. And I remember saying, like, his slider is such a weapon for a team like the White Sox because they're so right-handed. And you see Rocco go to him so many times against the White Sox this year, and you're reminded of that matchup because his slider is truly one of the best of any relievers in baseball. It's so sharp, so hard. The numbers on it are excellent. And then he pairs it with that 96, 97 on the fastball, and he's become a reliable reliever. And Thielbar, too, similar. That curveball in the slider, and then mixing it with the fastballs in the upper tier of the zone, high spin fastballs up in the zone. A lot of swing and miss When he's throwing strikes, he's super tough on righties and lefties, but especially lefties. And that duo, that combo has been very, very solid for the Twins. I made the case Sunday. They do need to get better next year at having longer starts. And I think so much of that is the right personnel. They need to get the right personnel. No more Bundys, no more Archers. Get the right personnel and change the philosophy a little bit too, where you're willing to go an extra inning. Because if you can shorten these games in 2023, they're going to be in much better shape. That one extra inning matters. Like the difference between the fifth and the sixth, it has mattered too many times for the Twins this year. Like just imagine if they would get one more scoreless inning out of their starter in a lot of these games. And I'm not saying that inning automatically would have been scoreless, but I think they would be in better shape. And I think that needs to be a focus of 2023 is let's invest in pitchers we can trust and invest in pitchers we can go beyond the fifth and sixth inning, because then you have Jack Steelbar and Duran at a minimum. And even if you don't trust Lopi, which I don't know why you would right now trust Jorge Lopez, you at least have Jack Steelbar and Duran. You should have Jorge Alcala back next year. And you can kind of build around that group, but you need longer starts. And it's twofold. It's the personnel and it's the philosophy. If you don't trust Dylan Bundy past the fifth, don't sign Dylan Bundy. If you don't trust Chris Archer past the fifth, don't sign Chris Archer. And I think the bullpen on paper will be better next year. You never know with a bullpen. You never know with relievers. But it should look better on paper. And the rotation is going to certainly look better on paper if you feel like you can hope that those guys are healthy. But some things need to change. We know that. Like some things need to change with this team, with the philosophy, certainly with the personnel. But Griffin Jackson, Caleb Thielbar are just examples that even in the worst of seasons, last year was one of the most disappointing seasons in Twins history. This year has not been that level because the expectations were lower coming in, but the collapse has been substantial. Even in seasons where the Twins missed the playoffs, even in the seasons where the Twins really disappoint, you still have these storylines and storylines that matter, because without Griffin Jacks, without Caleb Thielbar, without Nick Gordon, without Jose Miranda, who've all been great stories this year, next year, 2024, 2025 looks way bleaker. And you might be feeling now that it looks bleak anyway. And I'm not going to disagree with you. I think I'm more hopeful and optimistic about it than some. But without those guys, without those developments this year, you can forget about any hope for future years. So those things are important even in losing seasons. Like Bailey Ober last year, I know this year he only threw 30-something innings. He's going to start on Wednesday. But that matters because you feel like into the future, Bailey Ober can be a mid-rotation starter for you if he stays healthy. Joe Ryan making his starts in September mattered because he's had a solid rookie year, and you saw that in 2021. He doesn't start if the Twins are in a playoff race in 2021. So these storylines still matter, and the Jack Steelbar storylines this year have mattered. Nick Gordon had another nice night. He's really come into his own. I mean, he's part of that left-handed picture too, with Wallner and Larnick and Kirilloff and Polo switch hitter and Arraez. You have a lot of left-handed bats, and with the shift ban, I think it might benefit the Twins. It's going to benefit everybody, but more left-handed lineups, pull heavy lefties like Wallner, like Larnick. Kirilloff's not as much, but Polo is a heavy pull left-handed hitter when he's swinging from the left side. I think the shift ban will benefit those players, but I do think there is some redundancy here. There's some outfield redundancy, and especially when you add Kepler to that, because first base, it's Luis Arraez and Jose Miranda. If they bring back Gio Urshela, they're going to have to make some decisions, and maybe they start Wallner in AAA again. I would say that we'll talk about it this offseason, but I would say I'm not going to be crazy about that. Or Larnick, or maybe Kirilloff's not healthy. These things sometimes take care of themselves, but there is redundancy here, and I'll be very interested to see how this plays out down the stretch and into 2023. So Twins do lose the series opener to Kansas City. Bundy wasn't good. Not a surprise. Luis Arraez continues to struggle. He's dinged, and the Twins lost 5-4. Carlos Correa had another good night. He had 3 hits on the night, and he's been outstanding in September. Unfortunately, the team around him has not been. So, and unfortunately, he couldn't get more of those big hits earlier, and the Twins would probably be in a better spot now if he had. But he's been awesome, and hopefully he's okay. He slid into second and stayed down for a little bit, but remained in the game and then made a great throw to the plate. He's an awesome baseball player, and there are some awesome baseball players on this team, but many of them are hurt, or many of them have underperformed, or I mean, there's not enough of those awesome baseball players on the roster, and we'll see how that's addressed. But for now, the Twins lose. We'll be back with a post game on Wednesday. Thanks so much for making Locked On Twins your first listen today. Now make your second listen, the Locked On MLB podcast. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Sully is the absolute best. Follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. And as always, go Twins.